Thank you very much, Claire. As Claire said, I'm Carley. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm the head of digital communications at the University of St Andrews. And what I'm going to talk to you today is a problem that St Andrews has been facing over the last couple of years. And what this problem is that digital is becoming ever more present in our jobs. All of the systems we're using, the various content management systems, CRM, technology-enabled learning, all of these various things. And in the last year, St Andrews has brought in a new CRM system, upgraded our content management system to T4 version 8, and launched a whole new digital prospectus, which is effectively like a course search. So for us, change has been very rapid over the last couple of years. And these changes are putting a growing demand on us as the digital communications team. Because as more and more products are developed, we're having to spend time supporting and improving these products. And this is something that is putting more of a demand on our time. So short of expanding our team each time we launch a new product, what we are asking is how can we maintain forward momentum whilst also continuing with the high standards that we've developed to date? So one answer to this problem is to accept that it's increasingly untenable for our team to do everything in regards to digital across the institution. So what we really need is colleagues who don't come from a digital background to take on more of the work that in the past we have been doing. The question is, how do we do that? At St Andrews, we've taken a three-pronged approach to this. We have split these into three interlinked areas, and that is to standardise, to document, and to educate. So before I go into those kind of three areas, I kind of need to give you guys some background, some context to our team. So if you've been to last year's IWMW, you would have seen my colleague Gareth give one of these speeches where he talked about the changes that have happened in terms of the team at St Andrews. Just to kind of summarise this, if people want to come and ask me about this later, then please do, but I'm not going to cover this in too much detail. We're a team with a really diverse range of digital skills. So we do everything from front-end development, digital design, data, content creation, social media, training, project management, all within one team. We are all in the same space. We are part of corporate communications rather than IT services. And St Andrews doesn't have a specific marketing team, so we do a little bit of marketing as well as digital communications. We're all working on one specific objective, and that objective is to build a new, responsive, standardised, supported external-facing website. So we have been tasked with building a new external-facing website for the university. This objective is being pursued as a programme of work, so it's actually a set of 12 projects, 12 interlinked projects, which come together to build this external-facing website. And we're doing that using the Agile DSDM project management framework. We are overseen by a board, the External Website Programme Board, funnily enough. It's headed up by some really senior figures across the institution, including the Quaestor, who, again, if you've been here before, you would have heard us talk about Quaestors, basically the person that looks after the money for the university. And it includes the head of IT services, the head of digital communications, the assistant registrar, and representatives from the digital communications team, which is really important. And then finally, we also provide support and maintenance for the existing website, and we provide consultancy for other areas of the business. So that is all within our team. So that's just a little bit of background, a little bit of context. Now, what this means is that we do use quite a lot of project management talk, and that we have got a lot of what we have achieved, we have been able to achieve because we have pursued this as a series of projects and because we've had this buy-in from management. And I'm going to touch on those two things as we go through the slides. So the first thing that I said that we did is standardise. So the primary change that we have made is to standardise the design, the code, and the standards that we're working with. And the primary way that we have been doing that is with what we call the DPL, which is the Digital Pattern Library. Now, some of you will have been in Steve and Duncan's session from yesterday and will have seen our DPL already. A DPL is kind of like a global experience language, a GEL. You know, the BBC has got one, gov.uk has one, and we have developed our own. It's based on Bootstrap. It's been branded. It's all in the St Andrews colours. And it contains all of the elements that we have required to build websites and web applications over the last year or 18 months. This platform, the DPL is platform agnostic, which means that each of the pieces of code could be used. Our CMS at the moment is T4, but we also use it in WordPress, and if we switched our content management system, the DPL would still work. The other thing about the DPL is it can be used by people outside of our team, and this is one of the real selling points of it. We have been able to standardise the designs and the patterns that we have used, and we have been able to make it so that other people are able to use these. This is because it contains not only the pattern, but also all of the variations of a pattern. So can you use this in different colours? If you can, then it will show you the colours you can use this in. Can you use this with a transparent overlay? If so, then that will also all be included. It also includes the rules that developers need to follow if they are going to be using the DPL. That's all in one place. And even examples of how a pattern would look in situ. So the DPL is kind of like a one-stop shop for people to go and see the building blocks that we use to build websites with. The DPL, and this might be of interest to a large number of you, the DPL is publicly accessible at standardise.ac.uk/DPL. So you guys that have got laptops can have a look at it right now. I'm not sure that, that's not, that's not clickable, but any of you can have a look at that. And if you've got any questions about the DPL specifically, Steve and Duncan are here, and they will be able to answer any specific questions that you have after this. So the digital pattern library has lifted the immediate pressure on us to provide everything to everyone all of the time. We have, however, said that there are 3 things that must happen if someone else outside of our team is going to be using the digital pattern library. And so you can see the 3 rules that we have here. The first rule is that the people that would like to use the DPL, they must have a kick-off meeting with us. Now, this meeting can be as short as half an hour, or it could be an entire afternoon. But the aim of this meeting is so that we, as the digital communications team, understand the objective of the project that the other team is going to be working on. That allows us to know what kind of resource that they have. It allows us to know whether it's got any crossover with any work that we're doing. It allows us to have an understanding of what other developers across the university are working on, and that's really important. The second thing that we then ask is that we sign off the information architecture of the new product. Now, in the most part, these are web pages, and it's a fairly static mind map that we're signing off. But if it's used for web apps, we also would like to know the process that's going on through that web app. What this means is that we, quite a lot of the time, if we're talking to not the developer but the project manager or someone that's in a department, we give them quite a lot of information about user-centered design. We start talking to them about user stories. We tell them how to do user stories. We give them access to Google Analytics if they don't already have it, and ask them to analyse their data. Or if they can't, then we might do it for them. This really forces people to put the user at the heart of the design, and that's something that's really, really important to us. The IA quite often ends up just being a whole bunch of post-its that we then move around and take pictures of. It can be that simple. We don't, we're not asking for this to be demanding. But what we do say is that please do not go ahead and build anything until we have signed off the information architecture. Because the other thing this allows us to do is understand whether there are any patterns this project might need that don't already exist. Because once we understand what's going to be on the various pages of the product, we can start saying, okay, you guys are talking about events here, and we don't have a pattern that shows events at the moment, but that is something we can work on. What this means is when we have signed off the information architecture, at the point that we let people start building, we know that every pattern that they require already exists. This makes the building part pretty quick because we've already got all the building blocks to build that product. And then the final thing that we ask for is a sign-off meeting. So what happens after we've done created the information architecture and signed that off, is we generally send the developers off and say, okay, you've got access to the digital pattern library, go and have a go. As long as you don't deviate from the information architecture too much, then we're quite happy to let people use the DPL to build as they will. This leads to some really interesting situations sometimes where people use patterns and they are in accordance to the rules, but it isn't quite how we would have done it. And then we have to either say, right, are we going to change the rules or are we going to say that that's okay? And in the past, a lot of the time we've gone, yeah, we wouldn't have done it like that, but that's all right, actually. We quite like that. At the sign-off meeting, what we're effectively doing is saying, can we guarantee or can we say that this product that someone else has built meets the same standards that it would if we had built it ourselves? Because that's what we're really aiming for. This is why this is high sites, high standards. What we really want is for other people across the institution to build things and for it to look like the digital communications team did it. What this means as well is that we're not just checking the design and the coding of new products, we're also checking the content. So this quality assurance process at the end, this sign-off meeting, allows us to also say, okay, you've got everything right with the design, but none of your content meets house standard, so can we make sure that you've done a writing for the web course, or can we actually just go in and change these capital letters for you? The next part of our process is to document, and this is broken down into two main areas. So the first thing that you should know is that one of the first things that we did in our programme of work was that we created the St Andrews Service Manual. And again, the vast majority of this is publicly accessible online if you want to have a browse. What the service manual contains is a set of documentation which covers pretty much anything that we think we're responsible for. So everything from accessibility to code standards to social media to content management, design principles, file naming, link policies, PDF standards, video standards, and this we are adding to. But the fact that all of these things are written down and are on web pages that we can link to means that when people are not meeting our standards, we can say, and actually the standards are right here and they are publicly accessible and they are written in plain English and they're not techie unless they need to be. These are regularly checked and updated, and we have no qualms about changing things. We change things in our house style really regularly. We update our code standards when we find things change. And it's important to note that we actually took time away from our projects and our business as usual work in order to create this service manual. So it was actually one of the first things that we did. It took us quite a while, but we said it's probably more valuable to have this before we start a project than trying to reverse engineer things later down the line. Now, as I said before, we work in an agile way, so the first iteration was only that, a first iteration, but we thought it was important to have a first iteration before we moved on to anything else. The result of this additional documentation is twofold, really. Firstly, we've got this information publicly available, which means that we can link other people to it. So when we are asking people to change something on their project or on a product that's been developed, we can link them to these pages and say, this is what the problem is and this is why it is a problem. So it cuts down our workload. So because rather than having to draft emails every time saying, actually, we don't link like that, we can say, we don't link like that. If you're interested in finding out why we don't do so, then you can read this webpage. The second thing is that these are our documents, and having them up there and publicly available forces ourselves to keep to these standards as well. You know, there's nothing worse than someone contacting you and saying, well, you said on this webpage you did this, but then on your blog you're not doing that. You know, that's not what we are working to. By having these standards up there and publicly available, it keeps us on the straight and narrow as well. And the final thing is that having them there means that people across the university are aware of them, and it is slowly trickling through the consciousness that there is a right way to do certain things. And we do find that they are fairly well visited, and not just by our team. But the other thing is that it allows us to trust that the people that we work with will abide by our standards, because we have already linked them to these pages. We trust our colleagues, and if they say, yes, I've gone and read the links policy, then we can go say, okay, great, we will give you access to the content management system, and you can go ahead and create the index that you're looking for. The second thing on this slide is the Agile DSDM project management methodology. And we have been working using Agile for approximately 2 years now, I think. Agile DSDM has got quite a lot of documentation compared to some other Agile methodologies. Now, we've found this to be quite useful because of the way that the university is set up. It isn't the case that everyone at St Andrews uses Agile. So that means that whilst the vast majority of people we work with understand if we talk about terms of reference or must, must go, must, shoulds, coulds, won't, having the documentation means that our senior management have got something that they can kind of understand and read. So having standardised documents like a terms of reference, which is the very first piece of documentation that we create when we're working on a new project, that document is the same every time. And what this means is that if we go to our senior management team and we say to them, here are 2 projects, we have used exactly the same documentation in order to compare which one we should work on. It means that we're comparing like for like, and we're not comparing, it's a lot harder for people to kind of rig the system to make their project look more important because they have, just said, well, I'm just going to list all of the important people in my school that would benefit if we have this. So this is one of the reasons that it's important that I kind of told you guys the context, because we do report into this board, and the documentation that comes out of Agile is one of the things that has allowed that senior management team to better understand the work we do and the reasons that we do things in the order that we do them. The final part of the puzzle for us has been education. And the education that we have done can be broken into 2 areas. And the first of those is the scheduled formal training. We call this the digital visa. So we have a member of staff within the digital communications team who has digital training in their job description. We are all committed across the team to educating colleagues across the university, and the digital visa is our formal way of doing that. So effectively what the digital visa is a series of training modules or sessions. There are currently 5 compulsory modules and a number of optional modules. And this training program can be signed up by any member of staff across the university. So not just people that have a responsibility for digital, and not just people that have access to the content management system. It can be school secretaries and administrators that have an interest. It can be people that are interested in moving into the digital area. And this training system effectively says that if you do all 5 of the compulsory modules, then we will say that you are a digital advocate across the university. We will come to you in your school or department when we are looking for people to take part in focus groups, or when we're looking for people that are going to be involved in looking after the website. It's important to know that we've got at least 2 members within the team that have done train the trainer training. And this means that all of our training sessions are highly interactive. Many of them are in computer classrooms so that people can actually get hands-on experience of the things that we're talking about, and they're really quite well subscribed. At the moment, we've got 5 compulsory modules, and these are an introduction to digital communications. So this effectively tells people who the team are, what we have responsibility for, what we don't have responsibility for, and what some elements of digital best practice is. We generally recommend people do this one first. The second one we do is writing for the web. We've had a writing for the web program for quite a while now, and we generally say that anyone who wants access to the content management system to be able to publish out via our CMS needs to have writing for the web training. The third one that we have is an introduction to the digital pattern library. Now, this is a non-technical class, so it isn't about showing people how to build patterns in the DPL. It is just explaining to them what the DPL is, which is effectively like a big Lego block, a Lego box of all the blocks that we use to build things. But it also covers stuff like our brand identity, what our colours are, and why we use them. You know, how do we? The reason, you know, some of the reasons that we don't like you changing the colours of things is because this makes you less accessible. The page is less accessible. We also have a Google Analytics dashboard training session. So what this is rather than just trying to explain all of Google Analytics to someone that doesn't have any experience in it, we run a couple of hour training session where we show people how to create their own dashboard. So we show them how to add widgets, we ask them what the important things for their team is, and we show them how to add it into a dashboard. Now obviously this is great for them because they can just log in and pull a report and see what's going on, but it's also good for us because it reduces the number of people that are coming to us asking us for the same Google Analytics report every month or every 3 months. And we also offer social media training. And this is a social media basics kind of training that covers what we do as an institution, but also what we ask of other teams and groups if they are going to be doing social media and using the name of the University of St Andrews. So those are our 5 compulsory training sessions. But we also are in the process of creating a whole bunch of optional training sessions. So these include areas such as the one that I'm working on at the minute is creating content for social media. So we've already told them all what social media platforms to use and what to think about when they're setting up an account. But then we're starting to say, right, now here is how you create content that's going to be shareable and it's going to be of interest to your audience group using social media. We're also doing things like an introduction to search engine optimization, because again, that's something we get a lot of questions about. How to conduct your own usability testing, video standards, lots of these different things that we already do within the team. We have the expertise to do this, but there are people across the institution that would like us to help them with it, but we just don't have time because of the project work that we also have going on. So what we're trying to do in training people is both make them aware that these things are important and give them the skills to go away and do them themselves. And all of these training sessions are run through the university's kind of personal and professional development service, which at St Andrews is called KPOD. They have been a real support to us with this, but it means that this can be used by people as part of their professional development. It's also supported by all of the training that we would otherwise do, such as training in the content management system. The second thing that the other set of training that we do is, or education that we do, is the ongoing informal distribution of information. And this is something that we've been doing right since the beginning of the digital communications team. So most of this can be described as blogging or outreach. So the digital communications team blog is one of our key assets when it comes to communicating with stakeholders and with colleagues across the university. We have got quite a set format for our blog where we work in 2-week sprints, and every sprint that we are working in, we commit to having 3 blog posts that are on set topics. And those topics are something that we have learned from a previous sprint in terms of content, something that we have learned from a previous sprint in terms of design or development, and something that is going to be coming up in an upcoming sprint. What we have found by using this system allows us to talk about the things that we have achieved, the things that we have deployed, without just saying something like, we have deployed X, or we launched Y last week. It allows us to talk about our iterative improvement and saying, we are changing these things because we have tried them and they didn't work, or we think they can work better. The talking about things that are coming up in upcoming sprints, well, this is just trying to hammer into people's heads that we are going to be changing that product that you use a lot, and yes, please be aware that it is going to change. Now, obviously, that kind of thing is supported by a communications plan, but the fact that we are constantly also trying to point people to the future and be aware of what's going on in terms of digital is kind of like trying to hammer that home. Those 3 posts should always happen each sprint. Sometimes holidays and stuff might make it a little bit more difficult, but that's always what we're aiming for. Any blog posts over and above that point come from a list of topics that we keep on one of our Trello boards, and it's very much just up to staff interest. You know, our digital designer will quite often come along and say, can I write a thing about parallax scrolling? Or actually, should we talk about the fact that Yik Yak is dead? You know, those are the kind of posts that we add in later down the line to kind of say, right, what else is there that we think is of interest? The Digital Communications Team blog was always intended as a staff resource. We're very much of the opinion that the blog is a way that we can communicate with people within our institution. It is obviously publicly available for those of you who want to visit it. It's digitalcommunications.wp.standardise.ac.uk. It is, like, we very much see it as an internal resource, but obviously, people outside the institution can access it. It averages now around 3,500 page views a month, which we think is pretty good, considering there are around 2,000 members of staff at the university. And we do have people quite often coming up to us and saying, I read that blog post you wrote. So is it really true that we shouldn't be doing this? And we're like, yeah, that's right. So that has been particularly helpful. The other thing that supports our blog is something called the Digital Advisory Board, the DAB. Now, this has had a number of iterations. It was the Web Advisory Committee at one point, but the DAB is a monthly meeting that is open to, again, anyone across the university, although a lot of the time we have the same people attending each month. And it is effectively an open forum for us to communicate to people the status of our projects and anything that we have learned over the past month. So, you know, it's likely that at the next DAB meeting, I'll be talking about some of the things that I've heard here at IWMW. But it's also an opportunity for staff across the institution to come to us and say, I don't understand why I can't do this, or it's not clear to me what I should be doing on social media. So it's very much a conversation, a forum, as opposed to a kind of us sitting and trying to tell people what to do. We also use these sessions to demo anything that is new and to get feedback on it. We use these people as kind of our focus groups. We ask them about ideas for future training or for future blog posts, because these are the people, particularly the people that come every month, they're people that have got a really high level of interest in digital, and a lot of the time they are our digital advocates. The DAB, the Digital Advisory Board, is also supported by 2 monthly email newsletters. One of these just contains the minutes from the previous meeting, so that anyone who wasn't there can see that. We think it's really important to minute these meetings because sometimes people are raising real objections to either projects that we're working on or changes to policy, changes to our service manual, and being able to capture that and go and build relationships with those people afterwards is really important. And it's also supported by a monthly digital newsletter, which, again, for people that are time poor and can't attend the DAB, this allows us to send out blog posts, resources, project updates. We now have more than 130 recipients of that digital newsletter, including the head of admissions, head of IT services. And this is the kind of thing where we do get feedback saying it's really useful to know that we're going to get an update on your project every month, sent into the inboxes. So that is what we've been working on. And this has led to some really positive results for us. So the standardised document educate approach has really changed things, and it's become really obvious over the last year. We have, as I said before, identified members of staff who are digital advocates across the institution. So people within admissions, registry, development, and academic schools have become people that we know that we can call on within that department and ask them, okay, what did the head of school think about this? Or do you think it's going to be a problem if we change this within your school or department? We also have trained up content coordinators. So I think this is a story that we tell quite a lot, but before we redeveloped the admissions website pages, there were more people who had access to the admissions website pages than we had in admissions. So I think we went from having around 40 content people that could access the admissions website, and we've gone down to just 2. And those 2 people are highly trained, they are known to the digital communications team, and the number of content update requests we get from admissions now is really, really low, because everyone in admissions knows that if they want to update something on the admissions web pages, they go to those 2 members of staff within their school. If those 2 members of staff aren't available, then there's a process that gets followed, that it then comes to the digital communications team and we update it. But this happens really quite rarely. And that's because those people have become digital advocates and they've got the authority within their department to say, no, we can't do it like that, or yes, okay, but I'm not just going to copy and paste it straight across. I mentioned before that the digital newsletter particularly has also been a real game changer in terms of people at the senior level seeing us and hearing our voice and understanding that we have authority. So where at one point we would have communicated with someone in a department or a school and had a disagreement with them, and then they would have gone to their head of department or school and said, digital communications aren't going to do this thing that we want them to do. And that person then would have gone to our boss and they would have, then had a bit of an argument. Now what happens is that they go to their boss and their boss goes, well, actually, I read a blog post on the digital communications blog and this is why we shouldn't be doing things like this. So that senior management buy-in has been a real boon. And the other thing that's happened is that it just means that our team is really well kind of working well together. We all understand each other's areas of expertise a lot better because we have written these blog posts, we have done these training sessions. So the person that is in charge of Google Analytics can give the Google Analytics training session, but so can our digital trainer, and our digital trainer didn't necessarily fully understand Google Analytics before that point. So we're skill sharing across the team as well, and I think that makes a really big difference. The thing that I'm just going to close on now is a quick case study from our development office. So, as I said before, we have we take on consultancy from teams and units across the university. The development office came to us and said, we would like a new website. We would like it to use the DPL to be in the same style as the rest of the university website. How can we do that? And we said, okay, we do have a process in place. Let's have a kick-off meeting. And the team in development were still doing their day jobs. They do have a developer, but they all still have other projects and things that they're working on. And we had a kick-off meeting with them, and we kind of said, yeah, this looks like something that we could help you with. And then we let them go and speak to their teams across development. And then we came back together and we did a workshop where we worked out what the information architecture was. And that took, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 hours of my time. After that point, we signed off the information architecture. We gave them training in T4 version 8, which is where the new site was being built in, and we gave them access to all the patterns from the digital pattern library. They built the site themselves. We then came back in at the end, we did a quality assurance, and maybe that took 20 hours of our time in order to QA things and to provide recommendations of what needed to change. But the team from development started work on that project in late 2016. We gave them access to the content management system in February 2017, and by June 13th, just in time for our graduation, the new development site went live. So this is what we are aiming for all of the rest of the institution, that if people want to create new web products, we have got the resources and we can share the skills with them to allow them to do these projects themselves. And that's me.
Ooh, wow.